so what if you are super brave and you are all these other things? If the realities of this world and grief eventually makes you just miserable. What I want to talk about was the virtue of honor and obedience.
Oh.
I think that is so important, and it's very much lost in the Western world. Being a parent, studying the different schools of thought on education. When you are a child, or when you're trying to educate children, what's more important? And I think there's just two lines of thought, right? One is teach them to question everything. Question authority, question the logic, question every rule. Once you understand, form your understanding, then obey, then do. To impose that kind of understanding on youth, on toddlers even, I don't think that's gonna work. And I think a lot of other cultures throughout history understood that instinctively. You teach them to obey first and then understand later on. I think a big part of that is you learn that there's something respectable about almost everyone you meet. No matter their occupation, no matter their station, no matter their age, no matter what their political beliefs and what they identify as, they probably have something very valuable to teach you. And maybe you don't see eye to eye on certain things, but seek to understand, seek to be understood, but don't be so quick to disagree and to fight.
It makes sense, especially with like young kids. It's like, obviously you want to question everything. Obviously you want to like have your own thoughts and values and this and that, but not without respect, not like at the expense of others.
Yeah, when a teacher is challenging you something, instead of just challenging the teacher back and saying, why are you telling me this? And asserting their own will, but being able to quash their will, being able to discipline themselves and just getting things done, that is a virtue, right? And that is a virtue that I don't see enough of in today's kids, in today's society. But ironically, that is what the West was built on. And a lot of other cultures have that. And so being able to foster that again, I think will be very, very good. The second thing I want to talk about is also very much shunned by the West. And it's the topic about loyalty. In the West, it is very, very common to really empower the individual. That is great, right? I love that. But at the same time, that shouldn't be in contrast to the value and the virtue of loyalty. And I could use a different word for the word loyal, and you could see the value in it, is being dependable. When you are in a stable relationship, you can depend on the other person to do things and also to be a certain way. When a child can depend on his or her parents to be a good parent, that trust is so important, and that fosters such a great relationship. There's always something that can compete against your value, your worth. You know, somebody, right, younger, prettier, a guy richer, more respectable, more powerful. These things are always in flux, always changing. But who can you trust? Who is loyal? Who's dependable? Who's got your back? That you can't buy.
It's funny. I've been watching a lot of there's a connection. I've been watching a lot of Conan recently.
Yeah.
There is some video where, you know, he's like, oh, I'm gonna go around and fire who's, you know, disposable, right? And everyone's like, who? And he's like, who should I fire? And everyone's like, Jordan Schlansky.
Given that everybody, without fail, that I've talked to today has said fire Jordan Schlansky, I think it's fair for me to ask you, why are you crucial to the functioning of Conoco?
And basically his answer is like, you know,
it's any producer's job to make sure the host, like yourself, is freed up to deal with creative issues and doesn't have to get bogged down in the mire of production difficulties. If I do my job well, you'll never know about it.
And so Conan was like, okay,
So when you're performing at your highest capacity, I don't notice you. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
But also, if you weren't here and you were doing nothing, I wouldn't notice you. So how do I know the difference between you performing at the highest level and you doing nothing? They both feel the same, correct?
Possibly.
Anyways, all that to say, it was like, ha ha ha, because he probably works, you know, has a difficult job.
Right.
But it just made me think about, like, even if I'm not here, we're going to want to stay together because we trust each other. And I know you're loyal and I know you're dependable and this and that. And I can trust you and you're not going anywhere.
Right.
Anyways, it just made me think of that.
Right. No, loyalty is so big, so important. And it cuts out so much noise and energy because If everybody around you can't trust, then how do you live your life? Are you like just suspicious the entire time?
Right.
You have all these protocols. You can't do this, you can't do that because we got to be safe. We got to play by the rules. Then everything gets bogged down. But if there is trust, if there is that loyalty, and if you have each other's best interests in mind, and people have your best interest in mind, you have their best interest in mind, that it makes everything so much easier.
Yeah.
Being loyal, being surrounded by people who are loyal is just, you can't replace that.
Yeah.
This next one, I don't know any philosopher who would call this a virtue. It's the virtue of joy. To be joyful, to be happy, to be golly. You don't really think of that on the same scale as wisdom, bravery, harmony, all sorts of other virtues that we talked about. But I really do see it as a virtue, right? Joy isn't happiness in the sense of like, happiness a lot of times people identify as like a fleeting moment, right? It's when the dopamine hits. Joy is that eternal constant state of being where when you meet this person, you can feel their joy, even despite tragedy, even despite how tired they are. And the reason why I think it's so important is just because, so what if you are super brave and you are all these other things and you achieve wonderful success and tremendous wealth, if the realities of this world and grief eventually makes you just miserable. I think C.S. Lewis in The Great Divorce paints a very haunting picture where in hell, part of it is just you walk around and everything is a blur. And the reason is because you never paused in life to actually look at the things that are beautiful around you. You just kind of pass by, right? And you kind of just ignore, so things are blurry. And that's why photographs are so powerful, where it forces you to see what you tend to ignore. Life is hard. Are you able to find meaning and find joy and persevere through that? That is incredibly hard, but you have this one life to live. And if you don't find the joy, then the only thing that waits for you is misery. One thing that's so much easier to just quickly improve your life is just finding good people in your life just to surround yourself. And what I mean by that is finding a good plumber, finding a good car salesman, finding a good IT, finding a good find anything that you possibly need, finding a good version of that. And by just doing that, oh God, right? Your life will be so much better. But the question for you is, how do you identify good professionals?
Knowing what you're looking for and having a standard. Like, this is what I want, this is what'll make it good, this is what, qualified, unqualified. And then once you find it, you stop looking, There you go. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah. So in my experience, the best way to find good people in every industry and every circumstance, a lot of times when you talk to them, see if they are listening with both their mind and their heart. And that's actually very, very, very rare. Some people just talk with their mind. They don't have your best interest at heart. They don't care for what you're going through.
Right.
They're just logically breaking everything down, and that's it. They're just a mind. Some people, they only listen with their heart. They just care about what you're going through, but they don't present any solutions. That's not that helpful either. The good people, they care about what you care about, and they're logical, and they're able to really lay out the things. So they dedicate their mind and their heart to solve your problem. If you can find those type of people, it's so invaluable. This last virtue is very much a gift if you can get it. I call it the virtue of being saved. I think if you don't have this experience of being saved, all the other virtues just make your life, make you better, which is great. But once you experience this virtue of being saved, I think you'll realize everything else you gained, you'll count it as loss. Because what do you gain if you gain the whole world, but you lose your own soul? A lot of people think and believe very, very strongly that you cannot change other people and you cannot change yourself. A lot of therapy, a lot of premarital counseling all say that. Don't expect to change your spouse. Don't expect, you think about how hard it is to change yourself. You can't even change yourself. How can you expect others to change?
Right.
But because I've experienced it and because I've seen people go through this crazy change, so it's much easier for me to believe that they can and that the world can be a better place because I've experienced it, because I've seen it. The question is that journey, right? Even starting on the journey to want to seek transformation, even that itself is a miracle because it requires you to lay down your life. It requires you to lay down every disposition you have that you built up all your whole life. It calls on you to renounce almost everything that you believe in. And in that moment, it's not so much a sacrifice anymore. It's more so like finding the person you want to marry. It's like I don't want to live for myself anymore. I want to commit myself to you. So it's a very joyous encounter, as scary as it is, right? And I think that is the beautiful thing. But it's a gift if you can get it. And there's nothing I wish more for my kids to be able to experience. And that's it for our last episode of the last season of Better. It's done. We've talked about so many topics, virtues, funny little things. This has been a 3-year journey. It took months to script and write and research so many things. It took a lot of time to film this, to edit it, but we hope you really enjoyed it. We certainly did.
Yeah.
And it's been fun. And it's kind of bittersweet that we're ending everything. But yes, thank you for watching.